is in Aries 17 now. Two prim spinsters turning within to experience our true selves. When we lack potency in the outer world, it is helpful to turn within and deepen our inner world of peaceful grace. This is also an aspect of potency, but strengthens a more passive aspect of self, being rather than doing. Engagement with others is often draining, even dangerously so. At times, retreat is entirely appropriate. So this degree is about developing the poise and serenity, which we find very often comes from being alone, and an aspect of seclusion being associated with deepening of self-knowledge. The underlying principle being that we must be utterly true to ourselves. The image of prim spinsters is a bit laughable. We make jokes about them for television programs and so on. And it seems like they have not managed to pull the man in our current rather cruel culture. But that's not really what's being said here. What's being said here that really we ought to do that for ourselves. We ought to seclude ourselves away. And if it was just alone, that would be rather temporary. But it's two spinsters. In other words, it's not one, it's more than one. We have company of a sort, but it's not an involvement. It's not much of a commitment on the level that is usually the case when we actually find a partner and have children and share all of those kind of things. This is lighter than that. And this gives us a chance to focus more upon ourselves and our own inner experience of life. Such is the busyness of life that doing is promoted. And it's promoted to the level where if you don't do anything, then you're not considered worth much. So just being alive is not much respected. And the indication here is that maybe it should be. We're in the expression in Aries of attainment, which starts with the brownies dancing in the setting sun. And this is really getting excited by the life force itself. Life itself is amazing, and we want to go out and dance and choose particular times of day to involve ourselves with nature and so on. It's vital, it's out there. Now, this is not that, it's turning within. Now, the closest we come to this kind of experience, if we don't live alone, would be to go on a spiritual retreat. And the aspects of a spiritual retreat include not talking. The whole thing of talking to someone, having to find a response, having to find an opinion and an attitude, having to find a way to express yourself, when actually you don't feel in that mode of self-expression right now. These requirements of society draw us away from being who we are. In most cases, for most people, most of the time, that's how it is. However, the minority of people, particularly those who've got a sense of something else going on in life, something not out there, something that's very unique and personal, subjective feelings and so on. The type of people that notice this and want to look into that, want to energize that aspect of life, these are correlated very closely with those who claim a prioritization of the spiritual side in life. So we're talking about the facility of retreating in some way or other, to getting away from the madding crowd and just center yourself in yourself. Chiron is moving through this degree for a few weeks. And Chiron is all about changing your mind, changing the way you approach the world from the mental level. This focus of attention that we have with the direction of our glance. Basically, what we're looking at focuses our attention, of course. This applies not only to direction, at whom we are focusing our attention, it also applies to the manner in which we're doing that. So there are people that just give their attention to the problems that there are, the imperfections, the way things are not what they want them to be, the pessimists. There's that category of person. And, of course, because you find what you seek, then they find a depressing kind of life. And then there are the other half, shall we call it, that just find the best that they can in every situation, the optimists. They're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. And Chiron's job is to train us from the one to the other. Because for all our philosophy and all our life experiences and trying to understand and achieve and do things and so on, that might well be called an entertainment, to be honest. Because when you get to the final furlong, the final part of the race, you get to understand that there is nothing more to do than to train your mind away from pessimism and towards optimism to the nth degree in every situation, so that you never see darkness. You only see light. That's where we're going. That's our spiritual purpose. And Chiron is very helpful in that it shifts old wounds, makes us feel them again, experience them again, consider them again, where they might well have been dormant for some time. So it looks like Chiron is a problem because it makes us feel the hurts that we haven't felt for a while, and most people don't like that and don't want that. But we do, because we're trying to further our awakening. We want to know what's wrong with how we're perceiving life in order that we can fix it. And if we don't know what's wrong, we can't fix it. And if we can't feel our childhood pains again, we don't know what they are and we can't fix them. So Chiron gives us this blessing of having us experience our old pains again. But this time, from the point of view of an adult, mature, spiritually advanced position. So we don't have to dwell upon the discomfort. We just have to notice it and be honest about it. And that helps if you express that to someone else, in order that we can look differently at this question. Now, what could be more perfect than taking some time off to retreat into the prim spinster vibe, to contemplate what went on before in your life, what you're holding, what you're carrying, what pain you're having to cope with, in order that you can understand that it's a choice that you're making to have that pain as yet unresolved, and you could choose differently. That's Chiron's message. You can choose differently. And here we have the prim spinster. I'm alone. I don't like it. Is a lot of people's feelings about the matter of solitude. It's a great gift to be able to spend time alone, and it softens life. It makes the edges just smooth away, because you don't have to deal with anyone else's stuff. You've only got your own to deal with. And it may be that you've got a lot of process to do, but it's actually better to process your own material before you get involved too much with the material of other people. In other words, if we're trying to heal or help or teach someone else when we're not clear ourselves, then very often we do more damage than we do good. We have to sort out our own issues. Now, we can't get to the final word on that topic alone, and we can't only start helping people when we're totally clear. That's absurd. And I do hear people saying this, I want to heal myself before I can help anyone else. That's not really how it works. It's an ideal, it's a lovely idea, but it doesn't work. What works is you help somebody who's not quite at your level, just a little bit later than you are in coming to awakening. So if you're looking for a guide, look for somebody a little bit ahead of you, not beyond your reach. That's not easy to communicate across that gap. So what we're trying to do with this Chiron degree, this Aries 17 degree where Chiron is rather, we're trying to just shift a little bit our attitudes towards self in relationship to the outer world by secluding ourselves away from the outer world. So let's see what Mark Edmund Jones says. Aries 17, two prim spinsters. This is a symbol of what ultimately becomes an entirely private sustainment of reality, or a characteristically personal creation of his world in its varying aspects on the part of each participant in its events. There are here the two sides of self in an eternal pro and con, rejecting all outside judgments in the issues of everyday living and rejoicing in a complete insulation from the passing rewards as well as the unprofitable and self-diffusing superficialities of normal relationships. The key word is divorcement. When positive, the degree is an utter fidelity to self and all its special idealizations of its own capacities. So Jones is making the point that it is not our duty to serve. It is not our purpose to serve. That may well be what we do, but in this case, what we're doing is moving away from that obligation to serve somebody else's need for our company or help or whatever. Our primary duty is to ourselves. Now, this is not to be thought of as the same as selfishness. It's not. It's like that principle on an aeroplane, whereas if the oxygen masks fall, you put your own on before you help your neighbor. It's that principle. And here we have the idea that we're not going to be able to help other people particularly well unless we've sorted ourselves out a little bit. And anyway, our duty here is primarily to fulfill our own development process of becoming more and more and more who we are. Eventually, if we want to, we can relate to other people. And in this image, we've got the two prim spinsters, so that's what they're doing for relationship. They're very clearly aware of each other on a very deep level, very nuanced level. And so they are in relationship, but primarily they're in relationship with themselves. And I think each of us has a lot to think about when it comes to that question. What are we like in relationship to ourselves? Are we self-reflective? Do we allow our thoughts full expression? Do we perhaps keep a journal or some method of communicating deep issues, deep questions, deep thoughts without involvement with somebody else's opinion? That's difficult, isn't it, to communicate something without listening to somebody else's feedback. And this is a perfect way to do that. So I think the seriously doable side of this, because Chiron is saying, look, you need to do something about this. What we're being asked to do is to spend some time alone, particularly over the next few weeks, and come to terms with the fact that really the illusion of relationship passes at some point when we eventually get to move on, and in the latter few years of our lives even, we become more and more and more internal. And that's a very spiritually unfolding uplifting experience.